Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, the first official Oregon Ducks Power Hour heading into the 2024 college football season. Now, for those who are new, the Oregon Power Hour is going to be every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, where we take a deeper dive, get into the weeds a little bit within this Oregon program, whether we're looking at some film, looking at some breakout players, or breaking down a matchup. We're still going to preview the games every single Sunday. We're still going to react to the games every single Saturday. That being said, one, I love talking about this Oregon program, but more importantly, the amount of support that the Oregon Duck fans have shown really all off season long, it's been amazing. So we're going to have a dedicated episode every single Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, to really dive into this Oregon team. And taking a look at what I want to talk about today is you look at that week one matchup against Idaho and say, I think we all have a feeling how this game is going to go on Saturday. That being said, there are some interesting storylines to follow. And I think most importantly, really two things. One, who are the new faces that are going to shine for this Oregon Ducks program? Now, we've talked about, kind of the headliners, guys like Dillon Gabriel and Evan Stewart and Jabbar Muhammad. That being said, there are a lot of other players that Oregon either brought in through the transfer portal or from the high school ranks that I think are going to be really crucial for this Oregon team in 2024. Want to take a look at some of those names. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Oregon fans. One, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. The amount of support's been amazing. We appreciate you guys, but more importantly, new faces taking the field for Oregon. What names do you think stand out on Saturday against Idaho? And without further ado, let's get into it. I think one of the more fascinating conversations about this week one matchup is we're going to get a sense for how deep this Oregon roster is. And I think that's a really important conversation to have. We know that the top end talent is legit for Oregon, right? Whether you're talking about two potential first round NFL tackles, whether you're talking about Dillon Gabriel, who is the front runner to win the Heisman Trophy, whether you're talking about Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson, the star talent for Oregon is certainly there to go win a national championship. One of the things that I want to see get answered is the depth there, especially on the defensive side of the football to go win a national championship. What has separated, teams like Michigan in 2023 or teams like Georgia over the last couple of years? They're deep. And you look at Oregon, the expectation is a national championship. We know they have the star talent. Do they have the depth to go win 17 football games over the next couple months? We're going to get a little bit of a sense against Idaho because we would project that we're going to see a lot of the 2 and 3 deep in the second half of this football game. Now, want to get into, a few new faces that I think shine for Oregon week one. Brandon Johnson's probably the guy that I probably have my eyes on the most, where you're doing a little bit of shuffling in the secondary. Tasheem Johnson was exceptional at that nickel role last year. He's going to move to that safety position. Now, Brandon Johnson comes in from Duke. Can he provide this same run support that Tasheem Johnson provided in 2023? This is a really big storyline. You look at the Big Ten and some of the teams that Oregon is going to have to beat. A lot of teams are going to want to run the football. Now, you want to leave your nickel on the field to give you that speed and coverage ability, but when you do play with that nickel corner has to come up and run support. Tasheem Johnson was third on this Oregon Ducks team in tackles last year, only missed 5% of his tackles. He was exceptional not only in coverage with 7 pass breakups, but he was exceptional in run support. You look at some of the other really good nickels across the country, Mikey Sandstrel in Michigan, exceptional in run support. Can Brandon Johnson be that guy in run support at that nickel position? I think it's a really big storyline, and we have a lot of confidence that Brandon Johnson can do that. I think you look at Brandon Johnson's numbers, over 128 tackles, 16 tackles for loss coming from Duke. I look at Brandon Johnson and say he can come in and play that nickel role and kind of give you exactly what Tasheem Johnson gave you from that nickel role last year. Second guy I want to talk about, and a guy that I feel like kind of just flew under the radar. And when he committed, it was massive. And I feel like we just haven't talked about him that much during fall camp, and that's going to be Michigan State defensive lineman Derek Harman. The question that I have for Derek Harman, it's a question that we've pretty much had all offseason long. Can Derek Harman come in and be a kind of, for lack of better terms, a game wrecker for this Oregon defense, where you go back to 2023 and say, oh, look, Oregon was solid on the inside of the defensive line, but I wouldn't label any of those guys last year as quote-unquote game wreckers. You look at, again, going back to teams that have won national championships. Georgia in 2021 and 2022, guys with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. You look at Michigan in 2023, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. When you see teams win national championships, they normally have guys on the inside of the defensive line are some of the best players in the country. Derek Harman has that ability, not only in the pass rush where he led Michigan State in quarterback hurries last year, but also in the run game. I mean, you look at Derek Harman's numbers, he had 20 run stops in 2023 in the Big Ten at Michigan State. That was second on that football team. Derek Harman has all the potential to be that kind of game wrecker that Oregon is looking for. I like Jamari Caldwell too, but if you were to ask me who do I think is going to be the game wrecker for Oregon, I think it's going to be Derek Harman. I want to see him put that on display against an Idaho offensive line that, Derek Harman should be able to have his way with. Next guy I want to talk about, and this is another kind of important conversation, is who's going to be kind of the rotational pieces on the inside of the defensive line where you feel really good. I feel way better than I did 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago about the Oregon defensive line, specifically from a depth standpoint, right? You get Jamari Caldwell, you get Derek Harman, two guys that I think were bona fide, like all Big Ten caliber players. My question is, what does the 2 and 3 deep look like, right? When we're taking Derek Harman and Jamari Caldwell off the football field, who are going to be the guys that step up? One new face that I would keep an eye on is Tyone Gray, a guy that didn't get as much attention as, Aiden Breland or a guy like Jericho Johnson, but a guy that at 6'6", he's at 330 pounds now. I think he could be a rotational piece for Oregon, and that is the question that we have is, does Oregon have the depth on the inside of the defensive line to go win 17 football games and win a national championship when you're going to be playing teams like Michigan and Ohio State and Georgia in the college football playoffs? A guy like Tyone Gray is probably someone that I'm looking at. I thought he looked phenomenal in the spring game. Really fired up for Tyone Gray. Going to my last player on defense, and that's Aaron Flowers, another newcomer through the high school ranks. I think there's a really good chance that Aaron Flowers emerges as a rotational piece in the secondary year one. I think Aaron Flowers has every possibility and capability of doing that as well. You have Kobe Savage and Tasheem Johnson. Those are going to be your starting safeties. Aaron Flowers is probably safety number 3. So if you have to do some shuffling in the back end, maybe kick Tasheem Johnson back down to nickel, I think Aaron Flowers would be the guy that's coming onto the football field. We're going to see, I would think, plenty of Aaron Flowers against Idaho week 1. What does he look like? Everything we hear coming out of fall camp is he's a guy that not only is physically ready at 6 foot, 205 pounds, but more importantly, I think this kid is ready between the ears. And we talked about him coming out of high school, the versatility and the IQ that he has. He put it on display during the spring game. I'm keeping an eye on Aaron Flowers as a potential guy that, emerges as some sort of rotational piece. I don't know if he starts for Oregon in the 2024 season, but he's going to play a lot of football. And so I'm looking at Aaron Flowers and going to the offensive side of the football, specifically on the offensive line. Now, not a new player. He's been on this Oregon team, but we haven't really talked about him, is Charlie Pickard, former walk-on. Sounds like he's going to get the start at center for Oregon in this Idaho game with the injury to Matthew Bedford. Monitoring Charlie Pickard's performance is going to be big. You look at the last couple centers for Oregon, right? Powers Johnson in 2023. I believe it was Alex Forsythe in 2022. Oregon has been blessed with experience and really good centers on the offensive line. With Poncho probably moving out to guard with the injury to Matthew Bedford, what does Charlie Pickard look like? And more importantly, we probably expect Matthew Bedford to come back and be a starter. But if Oregon does need to go into the depth, it sounds like Charlie Pickard, if any of the guards go down, it sounds like Poncho kicks out and Charlie Pickard plays center. Is he a guy that Oregon can win with at the center position? That's another question. I look at Michigan last year when Zach Sinner goes down against Ohio State. Michigan seamlessly kind of went to their depth, shuffled the line, and had a really good offensive line to win in the college football playoffs. Obviously, you don't want any injuries to the offensive line, but we know that's a position that normally you have to reach into your depth at some point during the season. It sounds like Charlie Pickard is going to be one of those guys that Oregon uses at the depth position. Can he be a guy that Oregon can win with at a high level? That's a question that I have. I'll be certainly watching Charlie Pickard at the center position and kind of what Oregon's rotation looks like on the inside of the offensive line. That'll close it out there. Again, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Any new faces? Again, it's not me hating on Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart. The Oregon fans who've been rocking with the boys know I am fired up about those cats. We've just talked a lot about them. Wanted to give some love to kind of some other newcomers that we're probably going to get to see against Idaho. Would love to hear your kind of breakout players in the comments section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.